Okay then, you ever fancy seeing a fat man wobble? I'm not going to do it here. Watch this. You might have seen the other bit on this channel about how the season's gone for MPHR racing, but yeah, as I said, I was put in the passenger seat and given quite a bit of a ride round, and it is quite a bit of an exciting experience. But I'll tell you what, I couldn't do it, and I spoke to Brad about what it actually takes to pedal one of these things. So a normal person like me, who's never driven a race car in my life, if I got into this, would I stall it?
Probably is the answer. I mean, there's a lot of buttons and a lot of switches, and I remember the night where Dad had confirmed that we were getting this car. The only thing he sent me was the driver's manual, and it's the only time I've ever actually enjoyed a bit of bedtime reading, because it was just an instruction manual on what all the buttons do. I mean, most of them are fairly explanatory, but yeah, you know, you don't really have time to look when you're racing, so it is a case of remembering, you know, what's where and what does what, and yeah, and where the important ones are.
So what is the process of actually getting away in it?
So to be honest, there's at a race weekend it slightly differs, because obviously you do a lot more checks, you're a lot more thorough with everything. You know, we make sure it's all good to go. At a track day, the cars are quite, you know, approachable. There is different versions of this car with different gearboxes and different things that are more for like an amateur that could just run it at a track day like this.
Yeah.
But for us, it's just red switch, yellow switch. So battery on first, which is like your car battery if you just unplug it, and then we've got the yellow switch, which is obviously ignition, same as like putting your key in. So you would flick the battery on first, you'll see the dash light up when it gets ready, and then obviously when that loads up, this is one of the differences between the Gen 2 cars as well. On a Gen 2 car it's instant. As you can see, it takes a little while, and then we'll flick the ignition on. Obviously make sure it's in neutral first of all. I'll press this button when we're starting the car, just to make sure that everything is alright. So we have a load of sensors here, so this is all like geometry. So I've got wheel speed sensors, brake pressure front, brake pressure rear. That's more for when these guys are setting the cars up. And then I also have obviously all the engine stuff as well, so engine temperature, water temperature, oil temperature, air temperature, all the other information. Basically, when I'm first going out in the car, that's the page I'll have up, just to make sure everything's running right there.
Yeah.
And then obviously make sure that everything's there's no warning lights or anything like that. Usually we'll do 3 or 4 laps, come back in. The boys will check the car all the way around, make sure nothing's moved or anything like that. But yeah, then it's just pretty much start it and away you go.
What about during the year, like places like Oulton Park, during the summer, here in the summer, you talk about managing engine temperature.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What do you actually do to keep the temperature down?
On the page I use to race, there's a few options here. You've got your important data. So we have loads of different settings when I get through them. So this is the one I use when I'm racing. So obviously you've got the gear in the middle, nice and simple. And on the left you've got your 3 important ones. So you've got engine oil pressure. Starting from the top, you've got engine temperature, so the water temperature, the engine oil pressure, and then the gearbox temperature as well for the oil. Now, basically, I'll get a warning along the bottom where it says steering wheel position. I'll get a warning up there if anything's overheating or anything like that, and that's when you need to sort of back off. On the right hand side, by the way, there's all the timing, so best time, lap time, and then the delta difference between the two. Obviously, the big gear one in the middle. But yeah, I mean, managing engine temperature was literally when you get behind someone. Obviously, you don't have the cool air, to cool the car. So if you're tucked up behind someone for too long, the car begins to overheat, and you can feel it in the cockpit as well. It gets way hotter. You stop getting the air through. We have the blower button there, which obviously allows us to breathe. But yeah, obviously that goes away. So yeah, it's literally just watching the water temperature, watching the oil temperature, and even the oil pressure as well, and just making sure they're not getting too high. And if they are, either getting a bit of a gap or on a straight rather than slipstreaming, just pulling out slightly just to get a bit of air through. But yeah, that's all the management is just literally watching the temperature and making sure it's not going too high, because any other damage or anything like that is caused by high temperature.
And if a talentless fat lad like me gets in terms of tyres, I mean, obviously anybody who watches this and listens about bringing tyres in and drop off and even getting them warmed up, what's
in the tyre, and that's where you would make a start. You can weave at a fairly safe speed and get a bit of heat in, so that then you can begin to push and go a bit further and a bit faster. But certainly, getting the tyres warm, more so in the dry than the wet, is crucial, because these cars are not very nice when they're cold.
I know. Now, what about the braking coming in and going as well?
Yeah, so when you first get in the car, obviously in your road car you've got like a vacuum pump on the actual brake, so obviously you can go out there, you can push the brakes, and you never really, unless something's gone wrong, need to slam on the brakes in your road car, whereas obviously in a race car every corner you do. Now when you go out, obviously the first time you go out, your brake discs will be cold, your pads will be cold, and it's actually a good way of getting heat into your tyres as well, is by heating the brakes. So you would do a lot of stopping and starting, pushing the brake down off, pushing the brake down, but the engineers don't really like that, because it's quite bad for the drive shafts. But got to do it sometimes. But yeah, no, that's getting the brakes warm, getting the tyres warm, literally just going out your first few laps and just slow weaving, making sure everything's right, and then just pushing it a little bit. Maybe you'll feel the rear rotate or a bit of understeer, but it won't quite be where you want it to be. And then obviously as soon as the car gets its temperature, you dialed in, you know what you're doing, and it's lap after lap consistent at night.
So it's nothing like Project Cars?
Not really. To be fair, iRacing comes close.
Does it?
iRacing does a very good job, and there's not a lot of simulators that can simulate front wheel drive that well. Especially, I mean, Project Cars had, I think back in the day when I used to play Project Cars, it had front wheel drive, but it felt quite arcadey, whereas iRacing doesn't do a bad job. So yeah, iRacing's a good tool for just warming up and practicing, a few adjustments with setups and stuff. So yeah. didn't actually have any wipers then. That's why I was.
How do I get out?
Yeah.
Fucking beggar.
It's alright, that wasn't it?
Well, yeah.
Better with them tyres on as well, actually.